Well, hello, beautiful ones. I am Stacey Murphy, the head vixen of the Vixen Academy, and I want to welcome you to my special training. And it is to get him to commit. And it's about where I've been sharing over these 4 lessons, the 4 love secrets that inspire your man's love. And we have been taking a journey through the 4 checkpoints of the man code formula. And this is specifically geared towards positioning you in a particular way authentically on how you can position yourself to inspire your man to get the commitment that you deserve, right? And so the first checkpoint was about being your man's confidant, right? And with that, it was all about getting into his head, right? The first checkpoint, which is like the mind power, getting into his head. So here we're going to be going into number 2, which is about being your man's sex symbol. All right. So if you go ahead and pull out your workbook that I provided to all of you, that'd be great. And so we're going to take your juicy notes. So at any time, like I've always said, if something pops in your head, or if something doesn't even make sense to you, right? Go ahead and write it down so that when we get to the coaching and Q&A, I'll be able to clarify that for you, all right? And with this one, I did a little bit differently. I kind of did a slightly different order, and you'll kind of see that as we go along. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to share, I'm going to share another funny story, right? Definitely going to share another funny story. Ooh, let me adjust that. I saw the camera was getting ready to fall back there. All right. So on page number 2, I share with you ladies, right, what this journey is. And so right now we're here where it says being his sex symbol. Now, you know the top 3 reasons relationships fail. And so this training today is really going to be addressing those first 2, right? It's going to be addressing incompatibility. And it's also going to be addressing the sex component, right? And so that's what's going to be addressed in this training. And then the other thing I would love for you ladies to really hold on to is think of it as you are designing your relationship. And because that's what I teach in Manifest Your Man. It's about designing your relationship versus going through your relationships in default, right? And going by default. And that's what a lot of people do. They go by default and they kind of get whatever they get, and they're not having successful results. And it's because in terms of conscious thinking needed to be applied to it. So here I want you to think about in your relationship, if you're currently in a relationship or the relationship that you want to manifest coming in, what kind of relationship do you want? What kind of design do you want for your relationship? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is the way that we've been going through relationships. I'm probably going to be on my little soapbox about this probably for a while, but the way in which we're currently going through relationships in our society, it is in our world, it's not working. And we see the results, it's not working. Women aren't understanding men aren't understanding women. We're kind of getting in these opposing, camps as if we're in some kind of boxing ring. And, she's on this side, he's on this side, and we're at an impasse, right? And that's what the relationship space has been about for far too long. And part of it is because we've been trying to force a round peg into a square hole, or the reverse, a square peg in a round hole. And this is why we're in the conundrum that we're in. So I would ask you, why don't you just kind of blow up what, has been passed down in terms of, you want to do this. And if you behave this way and you're a good girl, you'll be able to meet a nice guy, or you'll be able to get married and have the house with the white picket fence, and you may have like 2 children and all this other stuff, and you should be kumbaya. Everything should be fine. We all know that is not happening. So what happens is, instead of forcing to try to force in this particular model, what kind of model do you want? Have you ever even processed that or even thought about, doing it this way has not worked? What will work? What is more in your energy and with your vibe, right? And so I invite you to kind of start thinking about that as you're going through this, because it's going to play a big role in the success in your overall relationships, all right? So I want to go to page 3, right? Because you're very familiar with page 2, is very similar from last week. So let's go on to page 3 now. So on this one, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger like I did before so you can see it a little bit better. So hopefully that is better for you. Okay. So before even getting into what a true sex symbol is, let me tell you a story, right? I want to start out with a story. And I'm actually going to share another story that happened to me today. Probably less than 6 hours ago, right? And I'm going to share it. It's like, oh, this is great for the class today. It's always going on. So the story I'm getting ready to share with you, I actually shared in a podcast that went out to my community on Sunday, and it was about what true love magic is, right? And this story, though, encapsulates that masculine feminine dynamic in terms of attractiveness, in terms of how you can inspire a man, and even conversation and things of that nature. So in these two situations, now let me kind of frame this up for you. In both of these situations, I was makeup free. I was wearing a mask. So part of my face, half my face was covered. I was in casual clothes. One, I was actually in a workout outfit and some sneakers. And the other one, I was wearing like a knit dress and my sandals and all this other stuff. And I just kind of wanted to share that first, because many times this is what goes on in the head of women. Oh, it's easy for that person to say because she probably was wearing this, or her makeup, or da 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 da. There's all these other things. And so I wanted to say I wasn't wearing any of that. None of that was going on. And it's to show you that in terms of your sex appeal and your seduction, there are other things that are more important about it that men pick up, that you're going to learn today, and how this story is. So the first situation, and some of you may have heard this, the first situation, I was actually taking a pit stop. I was in between appointments that I was doing. So I stopped off at a local bookstore to go to the cafe so I can sit there and do some work while I was waiting for my next appointment to start. One of the benefits of controlling your own schedule. And so when I walked into the bookstore, of course, I was looking around to see where I can sit. There was this one other table towards the front. But when I walked in, I saw this one dude and I was like, ooh, he is really scrumptious, right? I got all these fun words and terms for guys. So he was like really good looking, muscular, and the whole entire 9 yards. And all I said to myself is, I would love to have a conversation. I would love to connect with him. I would love to have a conversation with him. That's all I said to myself, right? And so I was in my love goddess energy and my seductive sassiness, primarily from my body language and my attitude. Okay, my body language and my attitude, because like I said, had a mask on half my face, so he couldn't see my lips, he couldn't see my nose, and I didn't have on any makeup and things of that nature. So what happened was I went down, sat down at my table, but I had a clear line of sight with him and he had a clear line of sight with me. And I could see him every now and then. He would pick up his head and kind of look. And I was sitting there, all my confidence, just doing my work and everything else, but I would notice him, right? And stuff like that. Well, fast forward. The woman that was sitting at the table that was closest to me, the only table that was close to me, well, she got up and left. And then what happened is after the server cleared out the table, the dude that I said, oh, I would love to have a conversation with him or connect with him, where he was sitting, he picked up all his stuff and he moved himself and sat at the table that was right next to me. Now, what happened was, when you're going into the seduction realm, that is called he made the first move, okay? Because he was fine right where he was sitting. He could see me right from where he was sitting. He wanted to get closer to me. So he picked up all his stuff and he moved. So he made the first move. So I noticed, I went, okay, I see he made the first move. Now he was there and it was very obvious he was studying. So this is what I did. I just asked him a question. And I said, oh, what is it that you're studying? That's all I asked. And then that was his, okay, point number two. That was, or move number two, the open invitation for him to start the conversation, right? Because he made the move and sat closer to me. I made the move and say, hey, what are you studying? So now he was like, green light, I can talk to her. Cool. And so that's exactly what he did. And from asking that one question, I found out he's also an entrepreneur. He was actually studying to get his real estate license, which is his second certification. He's a single dad and he wants to teach his son some good skills. It's actually going to play into something that I'm going to, in the lesson that we're talking today. So remember that I said that. He is teaching his son, right? So he told me all this information, found out he has two brothers. He's in business with one of his brothers who also already has his real estate license and had to take his insurance license, blah, blah, blah. But I found out all this information. And then I had to go because I had to go for my next appointment. So when I was packing up my stuff and I was getting ready to go, he's like, you're leaving? And I'm like, yeah, I have to go to my next appointment. I said, oh, it was so much fun talking to you. And then he just said, you're leaving? And I'm like, yeah. And this is why he kept asking me that. He was trying to figure out, do I have an in or an okay to ask her for her number or to give her my number so we can continue this conversation? Now, what was my intention that I said when I first walked into the cafe? I said, my intention was, I would love to have a conversation with him. I'd love to connect with him. And that's exactly what happened. So what happens is that's all I wanted to do. So I didn't lead or do anything else to lead him on to give him my number. And I said, oh, it was so great speaking with you. Good luck with your test. Have a nice day. And I went on with my business. And I can see he was still looking out the window as I was walking to my car, right? And so what happens is that is the energy of a sex symbol, right? That you can have access to at any time in any moment. And the second thing that happened to me was just last week, I went into this Indian restaurant to get some food on takeout. And I was waiting for my food, and I'm truncating this story from the podcast. But what happened was, as I got my food, there was something that wasn't correct. So I had to stand there and wait. And then I hear this voice behind me. And this man goes, hey, what did you order? So then I turn around because I didn't know, I didn't know who it's coming from. So I turned it around and there was just this one guy that was behind me. He was also good looking. Now, here was the interesting thing. He didn't have a mask on. And I'm kind of wonky about that because I'm in the high risk category. So this is why I faced forward and I turned around and we had social distancing and everything else. And he just kept asking me questions. I was like, this dude wants to talk to me. He wants to get to know me as well. So then I started having a conversation with him while maintaining the social distancing. And I was taking him on a tour of different food that he can try and all this other stuff like that. And he was just going on and on. And it was so funny. I was like, wow, all right. Now he already had his food. He had his food before mine. He was also doing takeout, but he lingered around so he could talk to me. And then after I got everything correct with my food, he then walks out with me. And then we're like talking a little bit outside. I'm like, oh, it was so nice to meet you. So I walked to my car. He's still standing there, staring at me as I'm walking to my car. I get into my car and then he walks to his car. And ladies, what happens is, here's what they were responding to. They were actually responding to my seductive energy, like those feelers that you put out there. And I talked about it a little bit in Confidant, but especially when it's being a sex symbol and especially your seductive energy, this is the visual. I'm going to repeat this visual again because I want this to be embedded in your mind because this is exactly how it works. What happens is with your energy, wherever you go, there you are. So when you walk into a room or any establishment, what happens is you're like that pebble that is thrown in a still pond. When you throw a pebble in a still pond, you see the waves, like the reverberating effect. You see how far that vibration, when you throw a pebble in a pond, how far that waves out, your energy works the same exact way. When you walk into a room, that's a still room. You are the pebble that's now been deposited in that room. And depending on your energy, if you got seductive flowing energy, or if you got real stank energy, either way, people are feeling that. It's that wave that goes out. It's invisible. And depending on what they feel, especially what a man feels from you, that will he'll either come closer into you or he will pull away from you. And it has to do along with that. And it'll play into another story that happened today. I will share that with you. So here is, and so I want you to kind of get that mode going on, because this sex symbol energy can be with you at any time, anywhere, any place. And the two stories that I just shared with you are examples of that. So here's what a sex symbol is. I'm going to give you two definitions, right? And one is according to dictionary.com. So you can actually Google it on that right now. Now, according to dictionary.com, this is what a sex symbol is. They say a sex symbol is a celebrity who is held to possess abundant sex appeal. Now, from that definition, that's a very narrow scope, because they would only say you got to be a celebrity in order to be a sex symbol and to have, abundant sex appeal, which is not true. Here is the true feminine power definition of a sex symbol. All right, and I'll repeat it for you because it's a little bit. So here's a feminine power definition of being a sex symbol. This is a woman who embraces her true feminine nature by living and loving her unique expression of her sex appeal and seduction. All right, that's the feminine power definition of seduction. It's a woman who embraces her true feminine nature by living and loving her unique expression of her sex appeal and seduction. And I want you to highlight the word, her unique expression, which means it's unique and individual for every one of us. We can have inspiration from other people and how they demonstrate their seductiveness and their sex appeal. But at the end of the day, it's going to be unique for each and every one of us because we're all individual and unique people. Now, and this is also driven by your feminine nature is driven by what? It is driven by your biology. And so write that, biology, and circle it, okay? Really, really big. So those are the two. So what I'm going to be taking you through here, it's through the lens of the feminine power definition of what being a sex symbol is and why you want to be your man's sex symbol, right? And here are the love implications. So this is where I'm bringing this a little bit earlier than in the first lesson. So what I'm going to do, depending on where you at in your relationship dynamic. So if you're in a new relationship, and this would be if you're a free agent, meaning you're single, right? Or if you're in a relationship less than 6 months and things of that nature. So you would fall in this camp. So here are the implications for you, for those of you that are here. What happens is the first thing, and there are about 4 implications for each. So the first one is, if you're in a new relationship, a man is assessing your confidence and your boundaries, right? So a lot of women complain about men coming on so strong with all they think about is sex, and they're coming on with the sexual innuendo, and they've met a man maybe 1 or 2 times and they're already pushing for sex and things of that nature. I mean, we've all heard it, we've all experienced it on one level or another. Now, when that happens, because it does happen, when that happens, there are actually 2 different perspectives I want you to look at this at. And it all depends on the man, whether he's a high quality man or if he's a low quality man. So let me start with the low quality man first, which I call the donkeys. So if the dude is a low quality man and he's really pushing for this, what happens is he's only caring about his needs. He's not interested about if you're being comfortable or if you're being content, what's going on with you, where you're at. He's only talking about his needs. He's only concerned about his needs. When you are in a situation like that and it's like, dude, I've just met you, and he's like pushing for it, that is a red flag that you need to move on. All right. That is a total red flag because he's very preoccupied by his needs and not thinking anything about how you're feeling. And so that's one way. Now, here's how it may look though, if that is coming from a high quality man. Because high quality men, they also do the sexual innuendo. They will also maybe push a little bit, but they're doing it for different reasons than a low quality man is. And this is why you need to know this, because they're doing it for different reasons. The reason why a high quality man will do that is they want to assess if you have standards. That's why they would do that. And let me explain. When I say they're looking to see if you have standards, they want to look to see if you take the bait that they are fishing out there. Because this is what they're doing. They're going to look and see, all right, I'm going to kind of push a little bit and let me see what her standards are. So then they'll go, all right, if she gave it up that easily, it's like, man, if she gave it up that easily, that means any dude can get it from her that easily. And he's like, that's not valuable to me. That is not what I want. I want a woman who is confident, because that's the other thing that communicates is you're not confident if you give it up that quickly like that. So what happens is when a high quality man does that, he's actually seeing to see if you have standards, to see if you have boundaries. And then if you have a little pushback and you hold your ground, they actually see that in a positive way. All right. That's why I wanted to share, depending on the guy, those are the two different meanings behind the same exact behavior. How do you know if he's a high quality man or a low quality man? If they keep pushing the situation. A high quality man will stop right there, and then he'll go on in a totally different route. A low quality man will just continue to push. Push, 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 push. Every conversation you have is going to be something in the conversation. So I wanted to bring that up. So here's the number two in terms of if you're in a new relationship. He's determining if you're fun and if you're laid back or if you're boring and uptight. That's the other thing he's determining. Can you be real easy about it, right? The third thing in a new relationship in terms of the implications is he will do and be more for you, all right? When you step into the energy. So when you step into the seductive sex symbol energy, a man will actually do more for you because men are craving that. And I'm going to get to that. The last thing in terms, if you're in a new relationship, in terms of the implications, a man is assessing if he has hit the jackpot, okay? He is assessing if he has hit the jackpot, and this is what the jackpot is. In every man's mind, they want a lady in public, but a freak in the bed. That is the truth, all right? And if a man goes, I don't want that, one, he has his own inhibitions or he's lying to you, right? But what happens is that behind, they want a lady in public, but they want a freak in the bed. And what happens is depending on how you react, that is what is determining what he's thinking behind that. So those are the implications for a new relationship. Now, here are the implications for an existing relationship. So that'd be everybody else, longer than 60 months. What happens is, here's the first thing. It actually contributes to keeping your partner faithful. I'm going to get into that. The second thing it does, it contributes to the relationship not getting boring, right? This is why you want to be your man's sex symbol. It contributes to the relationship not getting boring because you're keeping your partner's attention, so somebody else isn't. The third thing, it contributes to long-term relationship success, okay? And then the last thing for an existing relationship, your partner won't take you for granted, right? Especially when this is combined successfully with being your man's confidant. He will not take you for granted, right? And because what we're doing here is being your man's confidant was the first checkpoint, that first part. And then the second part here is being his sex symbol. This is the first half of the man code formula, which leads to a man feel good about himself when he's in your presence. Now you're combining these two together. So these are the implications, and I want you to keep that in mind as I'm navigating through the rest of the training. So let's kind of take a little stroll now into what I call our sexy biology, right? Now, here's what sexy biology even is, okay? Sexy biology is understanding how your nature as a woman really plays and interplays with the nature of men. Okay. And so this is why I say sexy biology, because this is not about conditioning. This is about how we were respectively, how the genders were designed, right? Divine design, how we were designed and created so that we can be in collaboration, in union with each other in this physical bodies, in this physical world. That is the perspective that this is coming from. All right. And so it's understanding how your nature as a woman interplays with a man's nature. Now, there are two results. And it really depends on, and this comes from your choices and the choices that you make. So here's option number one, the results for option number one, if you do understand how the energies interplay. So if you do understand how the energies interplay, what happens is this will inspire your man's devotion. So that's a result of option number one. It will inspire your man's devotion. Now with option number two, here's a result of that. Now, option number two is if you choose not to understand how your nature and a man's nature interplays together. And the result of that, when we don't understand, it actually leads to relationship sabotage. It leads to disharmony. So because if you're not understanding each other, you're making assumptions, you're making judgments, and you're going from conditioning, and that isn't necessarily reality or the truth. Okay. And so I want you to kind of see it from there. And this is a personal choice, right? And it all goes down to what decisions you decide to make. So I want to share now a little bit more about male nature then. So you can understand that a little bit more. And that way you can actually see where, or you may have been like, man, I've been doing a good job, but I didn't know about it. Or you may go, I can see how I've been sabotaging myself right now. All right. So let me kind of get into male nature. And there are four things I want you to keep in mind when it comes to male nature. All right. So here's the first thing. Male nature, just like feminine, is who they are, So that comes down to acceptance. Okay. It comes down to acceptance. The second thing about male nature, it's their DNA, right? It is what's coursing through their veins. It is their hormones. It is their cells. It is all of those things. So that's the second part to the male nature. Now, the third part is their beingness. This is what I mean by beingness. Behaviors that transcend, and this would be for all men. When you know it's in a man's nature, their beingness is behaviors that transcend race, that transcend culture, that transcend socioeconomic status, any of that. So any behavior that transcends any of those things, and you see them consistently in almost all men or every man or majority of men, then that is your indication. It's telling you that's part of male nature, okay? And so that you can stop fighting the things that are part of male nature. And then that way you're not sabotaging yourself, and then you will understand, you know what, this is from conditioning. Whatever he's going through, this is from conditioning. And then you're able to deal with certain things appropriately, right? And so that's one of the things I want you to, and I want you to think about that, even in your own, I want you to think of all the men that you know, that or that you even are in connection with. So these would be men that you work with, men that are in your family, men that are in your social circles, other people's families and other people's social circles. What is consistent with all of them? That is going to be an indication about male nature. And that's what I want you to start studying by observing men. So you can actually know, it's like, wow, this is consistent. And so you can have that awareness. And the fourth part of male nature, it's with them from birth. It's not something that is learned. Anything that has to do with nature is about being. It's not about learning. Anything that we're learning is coming from doing state. Your nature is coming from the being state. So those are the four things I want you to also remember. Who are they? What is their DNA? Their beingness, and it's been with them from birth, all right? And so here's one example I want to share with you, just to kind of bring this home. That a part of a man's nature is their crazy and unique sense of smell. Smell, because testosterone is the main hormone in men, right? It's their main hormone. Testosterone is also what makes men more primal. And that's why man's five senses are more acute than a woman's senses are. It's because of the testosterone. Like I said before, unless a woman's pregnant, that's the difference. Her senses are totally elevated. But outside of that, most men's senses are more acute than women because of the testosterone. So their sense of smell is like a dog. And this is why men are also compared to dogs, and like women are compared to cats, right? Dogs can sniff out anything just like men can. So here's the point to put that point to home. The University of Florida, as well as the University of Texas in Austin, they actually did studies around this. And they did some research studies, and this is what they found in two separate studies, separate universities, but they got the same exact results. And what that was is they exposed a panel of men, hundreds of men, to sniff these women's t-shirts. But the women, they had t-shirts separated. Some of the women were had been ovulating. Some other women, they were very much into their seductive energies, sassy, and they're very confident in their sexual expression. Other women were had low self-esteem, low self-worth. They were having issues and challenges in their life. They weren't feeling good about themselves and things of that nature, or they were stressed out. Now, these men didn't see any of these women. All they did was sniff t-shirts. That's it. They don't know what they look like, nothing. And this is what the results were. The men that sniffed the t-shirts of women that were actually either ovulating or who were sassy in their energy and feeling good about themselves, they actually got physically aroused by sniffing a t-shirt. No lie. And this is the University of Florida and the University of Texas, right? And they got aroused, and it was consistent. And so what happens is, ladies, this is why when you're out and about and when you are confident and when you're sassiness, like that story I told you at the bookstore, men, they are sniffing that out. They can spot you and smell you from a mile away. And you know what they're picking up? Your pheromones. That is what they're picking up. That is what you're exuding, right? With all that is your pheromones. And it was like that because it's part of the mating process, right? And so I wanted to share that with you. And like whenever a man is giving you a lingering hug that lasts for a long, long time, not only, of course, touch, it's another one of the five senses, but this is what a man is also doing. This is what your man is doing to you when he's lingering with a hug. He's actually sniffing you and he's smelling you. Yeah, he's actually doing that. So, and now you know why. Now you know where it's coming from, and it's all connected to his biology with the testosterone, and what he's picking up is the pheromones that are being emitted from the women. And can women smell men's pheromones? Yes, we pick up on that as well, but not in the same way, not even close in the same way, and things of that nature. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, this is why if any of you here are on the call that have done my Love Goddess training, this is why I teach you the whole thing about the formulary when you're doing your Love Goddess persona, right? Now in Manifest Your Man, you also develop your Love Goddess persona, but in Love Goddess, you do the formulary with your scent. And it's really to tap into this very, very specifically. So I wanted you ladies to smell that, because all this plays into how you're going to be turning on and really doing with your sex symbol, right? Because here's the one thing around scent, and I'm going to close it out as I want to take to the buzzkill that kind of brings you out of this. When it comes to having a signature scent, what happens is when you're wearing a particular fragrance, especially when you're meeting your man, right? And whether it's a new man or your current man that's in your life, if you're wearing the same consistent fragrance, what happens is that fragrance gets embedded in your man's head. And every single time he smells anything that's remotely close to that fragrance, boom, you will pop in his head. That's why you have a signature fragrance. This is why when I'm working with my ladies, I'm like, You need to take care of all of your natural juices and everything else, because men, they smell and they absorb all of that stuff. Okay. So here is what is the buzzkill that can take you out of really understanding and playing with that, meaning playing with your feminine energy, playing with a man's masculine energy, right? And so to set this up for you, I would love for everybody just to take a moment and close your eyes, right? I want you to take a moment. I want you to close your eyes. Obviously, if you're driving, you can't do that. But if you're in a place where you're sitting down, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to take a deep breath, just one deep breath in, to kind of ground yourself. Because I'm going to just share something with you. And I want you to visualize this. That's why I want you to close your eyes. I want you to visualize this. So, ladies, you're sitting right there, and I want you to imagine your man is standing in front of you, the man that's currently in your life or the man that you desire to attract in your life, right? He is right there in front of you. And I want you to think to yourself, how would you feel if your man not only understood you, but also welcomed deep emotional bond with you? And he was really hungering to have that deep emotional connection with you. He wants to be understanding of your feelings, and he wants to be present there for you. And your man is standing in front of you right now, and he is holding your hand, and he's looking in your eyes. And he says, I want to be an emotional support for you, a shoulder for you to be able to lean on in those times when you may not be feeling good, in those times that the world may be slapping you around. I want you to know that I am here to be that safe emotional place for you. And I hear you, and I see you, and I love you. I want you to get into that feeling, okay? I want you to get into the feeling that you have a man in your life who is willing to be open and has the courage to be vulnerable with you. I want you to start picturing that and feeling that. And what I like for you to do, I want you to tap into how your heart feels right now, to have a man like that in your life, right? I want you to tap into how you feel emotionally about a man accepting you. Full acceptance in every essence, in every way of your feminine being. And I want you to also tap in right now that your man, like I said, is looking deep into your eyes with love and how that feels. All right. So now that you've gotten into that feeling a little bit, I want you to open your eyes. Because what I would love for you to share or use with that feeling that you just came up, you know how wonderful you just felt right now to be in union with someone that can really get you emotionally and your deep desire to really authentically feel that? Well, ladies, that is what a man wants to feel and experience with you by being his sex symbol. Because remember, estrogen rules the emotion. And that's why you're so comfortable, in wanting, and you desire, you literally need that emotional connection with your partner, right? So on the other end of things, that's how men feel when it comes to having the sexual connection with their partner, which is driven by their testosterone, which is responsible for sexual arousal, all right? So what happens is, what disconnects us from our nature, right? You come presenting and being there in your natural feminine essence with your man. And it's one thing. It is how you were nurtured. In other ways, how you were programmed, how your environment molded you into the person that you are. Your habits and patterns are what disconnects us from our nature. And the longer it happens over time, you become like this. And so what happens is when we're born, we're pure, we're clear, we're pure love. As we grow up, what happens is, depending on how we got programmed, depending on how we were, how our environment was and our circumstances, that then really determines how disconnected we are from our nature, right? And so what happens is, the things that do that are many times our institutions or even our family. And it's certain things that get passed down in the family, and you don't even know where it came from, right? And so here's something I want to share with you where a lot of this is coming from deeper, so that you can actually examine this within yourself and process it within yourself. Because women were actually programmed and conditioned to actually despise our nature. And here's why that was done. It was done as a way to actually control us and to diminish our power. And the reason why that is because men crave this from women. And many men will do anything to get this experience with women. And that is why it needed to be controlled. And it was because they were like, you know what? We're not going to control the men, right? We're not going to control the men. You know, they don't have any self-control. So what we're going to do is we're going to control the women, because we don't have the self-control. So we're going to control their behavior. So this is where the good girl stuff came in, being a good girl and wanting to behave, right? And to believe. And so with all of that, we were actually programmed and conditioned to be good girls and to negate our true seductive nature, which is a natural feminine strength, okay? We were programmed this way because it's part of the mating game. Because what happens is, if we didn't do this, because men are naturally predatorial. And so in order to catch a predator, and this is driven by their testosterone, in order to catch a predator, you have to seduce it. So this is why women are naturally seductive, so that we can play together in the sandbox in that way. So when women were trying to be controlled, boom, that went away. And then an imbalance occurred. So this is what happened because of how we were programmed. And this is very, very important. So due to this, women, or should I say mothers, stopped teaching their daughters the ways of women, the womanly ways. Moms used to pass this down to their daughters. Now, what happens is moms stopped doing that. But what happened was men, or should I say dads, continued teaching their sons the way of men, but moms stopped teaching their daughters the way of women. So that's the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is women changed, but men didn't. Look at our society, right? Women changed, but men did not change. Women were expected to act differently, but men were not expected to act differently, right? You got the Me Too movement, all this other stuff. Women had to act differently, but men did not. The other thing is, women were programmed to believe that they were responsible if a man couldn't control his actions towards her, right? And women actually propagated this. Many times if someone has sexual violence, first thing they say, what was she wearing? That is further propagating this, I don't even know the word for it, but this conditioning, right? And we're even doing it to ourselves. But what happens is that is what it produced. So I want you to pay attention to the behavior. Who did most of the changing? Women did most of the changing. Men didn't. And so what happens is one group stayed in their nature and then the other half did not. And then what happens is, and we're still trying to be in relationship with each other, and that is what's causing the sabotage right then and there, okay? So what happens is, due to this, women got all turned around and got disconnected. And obviously, this actually is the source of low self-confidence and low self-worth. It's because you're disconnected from who you truly are. So now you're reconnecting yourself, right? And this is the process that we're going through right now. And so that is the major buzzkill that's going on here, right? That is the major buzzkill and how we got disconnected from our nature. And I want you to examine in your own life where has that shown up, right? So all the things, the good girl syndrome, behave, being, doing what you're told, following this line. Well, because as you were told, if you did this, A, B, C, D, you would get to the promised land and you should be happy. Well, many of us did that. And then we were like, oh, our promised land didn't come. What's going on? And that's why it's being re-examined. So I want you to see, how did that play out in your life? How disconnected are you from your feminine nature? Because now what I want to do in the rest of this training is reconnect you to your feminine nature. All right. So you can be that sex symbol for your partner. So let's go ahead to page number 5. Okay. And this is actually going to be part of your love work. This is going to be part of your love work. And I'm going to be getting into the solutions, and so that you can start playing with this, so you can become friends with yourself. And so this is where we're going to be starting to inspire your man. So the first thing you have to do is literally recalibrate and assess your masculine, feminine energy and how it's showing up in you. So in the confidant, you did the high quality woman assessment. In this one, you're going to be doing your feminine energy assessment. And you're going to be kind of recalibrating that. And so the yin yang symbol that you see there, that is a wonderful image that really shows how the masculine and feminine energies are designed to play and interact with each other. Now, the yin is the feminine energy. And what happens is you can see all the feminine energy, and there's a little bit of masculine energy that's in there. And then look at the reverse with the yang, that's masculine energy, and there's a little bit of feminine energy in there. And then we all come together, and that's how we complement each other. And I would say we don't complete each other, we complement each other, right? So right now, before I get into anything, I want you to do real quickly, I want you to put down in percentage wise, right on the piece of paper, what you feel your masculine, feminine energy is resonating within you right now. So for example, do you feel as you're operating, and you're going to do this on 2 different levels. You're going to first romantically. So how is your feminine, masculine energy balanced romantically in your relationships? And then the second one is I want you to do that assessment in terms of general, overall, okay? Because some people show up differently in their relationships than they do to other people, and other people are just consistent all over. So that's why I want to break it up in 2, just in case if you're one way in your relationship and you're one way with everybody else. So you're going to determine, I want you to write down what your percentage mix is. So do you feel that you're 80% in your masculine, 20% in your feminine? Maybe you're 80% in your feminine and you're 20% in your masculine. Maybe you're 50-50, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and I want you to write down whatever number pops in your head. Do not overthink it. Just write the first thing that comes down. All right. So now that you have that number, I want you to circle it, because here's how I want you to do this love work assignment. What you're going to do is you're going to go here and you're going to circle in this chart, in this legend that you see, you're going to circle, okay, what feminine energy traits show up in you consistently in a positive way. Circle all those. Then you're going to do with the masculine energy the same thing. What masculine energy traits show up in me consistent all the time? And then you're going to circle those. And then you're going to see, okay, where is your mix here? And I really want you also to look at what the implications are in terms of what the intimate relationship implications are romantically, and then also professionally, because there are 2 different types of implications. And so here's where, in terms of recalibrating, because here's why I want you to put that number first, because here is the ultimate, or should I say the optimal percentage that you know that you're resonating in a positive way in your feminine energy. So in order to be in your powerful feminine, you would need to be resonating in your feminine energy around between 75 to 70 to 75% in your feminine energy, which will be 25 to 30% in your masculine energy. That is what your balance should be to be in your powerful feminine. So if you were over 75%, that means you need to rein that back, right? You're being probably be a little bit too much of a pushover or doormat. You need to kind of rein that back. You need to amp up your masculine energy. But if you said it was like the reverse, if you're 50-50, or if you're 70% in your masculine energy, then you know what you really need to recalibrate. And here's how that can look. And I use this one example because it shows up a lot in women, especially in our modern women, being aggressive, right? Now, I share with you about how women had changed. What they did is they evolved into being more like men, is what happened. And so men, many times they feel that they're in another relationship with another dude. And so what happened is, because aggressiveness is not sexy in women. So here's how you recalibrate, especially if you've gotten feedback from other people that you're aggressive, or you may have heard this, you're really intimidating. If someone says that you intimidate them or whatever, that's code for you're very aggressive. That's what that code is for when they say that. So here's how you recalibrate that. What you would do is you would take gentle power, the feminine energy of gentle power, and you would combine that with the masculine energy of aggression. And when you combined and you infuse gentle power with that, it turns it into an initiative. That's how you work this to recalibrate your energy. So, because what a lot of women are doing is they're ditching the gentle power and going straight into aggression. And that's where the intimidation is coming from. You need to fuse the two together. So when you're doing this assignment, that's how I want you to think about it. That's how I want you to navigate it, because especially if you are doing your love goddess persona, whether you're in love goddess mastery or a manifest your man, this is the first thing we always look at, is we have to see where are you at, so you can know what you need to recalibrate and what you need to adjust, right? So what I want you to do is, let's go on to the next page now, page number 6. And I'm going to be getting into the whole thing about being a lipstick feminist, because I'm a proud lipstick feminist, and why you want to be one as well. So let me give you the definition of what a lipstick feminist is. You can actually Google this, right? So you don't have to take my word for it. You can go ahead and Google it yourself. But a lipstick feminist, in real simple terms, is a woman who embraces traditional femininity, and at the same time, alongside feminist values. They're not mutually exclusive, right? So where we are right now in our current society, we're actually in the fourth wave, the fourth feminist wave. The first was the suffrage, right? Was the suffrage movement. The second wave of feminism was in my time when I was born, right? Equal rights, burning bras, all that other stuff like that, and things of that nature. That's what I grew up in. Now, here's what happened. During that time, yes, women were so oppressed, still are in many cultures and in many areas. And so it's unfortunate that we still have to, fight for the equality that we're due by birthright. But what happened is, in the second wave, it created unintentionally created a bunch of self-loathing women, meaning they hated being women. And they wanted to be like men because they felt that's the only way that I can get respect. And so that's when a lot of the moms stopped teaching their daughters the womanly ways. And what happens is, a lot of women now, they're totally confused. They say, I don't even know what it is to be feminine, right? And things like that. And so because of that, there was a huge backlash to that. And that what ushered in the third wave of the feminist movement, which had more diversity, right? So there are Christian feminists, there's a lipstick feminist, there are so many different ways. But here with the lipstick feminists, they embrace their femininity. They embraced, I love wearing heels and having makeup and all this other stuff, and still fight for my rights all at the same time. And so that's what I ask you to embrace, because that is the power behind being your man's sex symbol, right? Because you are powerful and you are a feminine woman all at the same time. That is that lady in public and the freak in the bed right there. So this is why I was like, why you want to embrace that lipstick feminist, because it feeds right into that. And it is embracing your natural power anyway. Okay. So what happens is, this is where we're going to kind of like play there. So with that, to even go deeper, and this is why we do the Love Goddess persona. Well, my persona, her name is Scarlett O'Dare. That's my sassy alter ego. Now, all of you will be going through that, right? When you go through Manifest Your Man, you'll be going through the Love Goddess persona, because is also not only to reconnect, not only did my persona reconnect me to me, but it reconnected me to my juiciness. It reconnected me to my sassiness. And when you do persona work, many times it's done in therapy. They do a lot of persona work, or a lot of athletes do persona work, because it's also used to get you out of fear. Because your everyday personality that is keeping you disconnected from being your own sex symbol in your own right, that is from the conditioning that you received growing up, which is taking you out of your joy. So what happens is, that is what has the baggage, your everyday personality. But when you're doing with your persona, she has none of that baggage, zero. And so whenever I was getting afraid or nervous to do something, like I had a real major fear of speaking in public, even doing a Zoom teaching like this, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would be like throwing up, sick. And that's why I had to do my persona development, because it was irrational fear. And what happened was, when I first developed her, and when I first had to do my speaking engagement, and when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. And then all of a sudden I heard my persona. She went, "Girl, I got this. Relax, I got this." Because with the persona, developed her attitude, how she thinks, her look, her style, the whole entire 9 yards. And I channeled her in, and the rest was history. And I was, good from there. And so this is the tool that's going to help you really tap into being your own lipstick feminist for yourself, right? And so here's another reason why you want to step into your feminine radiance. Because men, like I said, let me back up real quickly. One of the things here is, when you're able to melt these two together, right? Your natural femininity and your powerful self-confidence, right? And things of that nature, you're then being in alignment with who you are. And then when you're in alignment with the essence of who you are, your life will go smoother. When you're not in alignment with who you are, that's when you're easy getting to overwhelm. You overthink. You're not grounded. You feel that you're being pulled in 50 million different directions. And if somebody were to ask you, what is it that you want? And if your mind goes blank at the first thing, that's a definite sign you're disconnected from your core and your truth. And so this is why I want you to step into that, because you'll be in alignment with yourself, and then your life will go smoother. Now, the other reason why this is really important for you to step into this in terms of, engaging with men, balance. One word. That is the other reason. It's for balance, and balance and harmony in the relationship. So let's kind of think about that, ladies, in the relationship. If men haven't necessarily changed the core essence of who they are, but women have changed the core essence of who they are, and then they've been acting more like men, where's the balance? That's like two dudes in the relationship, there's no balance. And so that's also where the power struggles comes in, is because you have two people that are trying to go for the same position in the relationship. And that does not work. Just like we have a president and a vice president, you have a CEO of a corporation and a COO of a corporation, right? And things of that nature. So what happens is there's to be balance. And so that's why it's important for you to be in your feminine essence, is due to balance, all right? Now, here's a way that can look in terms of balancing itself out. And so I want you to think of it this way. This also is not about feminine roles and male roles. So I want you to separate a feminine role from feminine nature, and male roles in male nature. Because here's where the other sabotage really comes in. What we're doing is we're focused on the role, and that is what we're reacting to. That is where the triggers are coming from. And it's coming from how we've been conditioned in certain roles versus looking at the nature of the situation. So here's how they both can interplay respectively in a relationship, right? So I wrote this down. So for example, a man, right? He can be that loving partner. Like I said, that story that I was playing for you, being that emotional, that loving partner. At the same time, being your fierce protector, all at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. Just like as a woman, you can have the one has the financial smarts and savvy, or the one that's doing the wheeling and dealing, but at the same time, be soft and seductive, right? So you can be that shrewd businesswoman, but then you can be soft and seductive all at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. It's not one or the other. So this is how I want you to start thinking around this topic. Right. And so I want you to think about this. What do you feel when you're holding back from embracing this? Like what's going on? So like when you say, I don't have that interest, I'm so sick and tired of, my partner, he's always emphasizing with, intimacy or sex and things of that nature. So, and then you're frustrated, or you're tired of men hitting on you, or whatever the case may be. So here's a question I have for you. How do you feel by holding back from embracing your true feminine seduction? How do you feel? Because what I hear from a lot of ladies is they feel a lot of frustration, is what they feel. And because of this tug of war. But imagine if you knew how to navigate it versus being resistant to it, how differently do you think your relationship would be? Or your relationships with men? Even think about how some things were in the past. And so that's what I want you to kind of chew on, so that you can actually see, all right, there's a part that hasn't been serving me well. And I'm going to look at this. Now, this is not about being every man's sex symbol. No, that's not what this is about. This is about, one, owning your own energy, first and foremost, and then being a sex symbol for that special person in your life, right? Not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry and stuff like that. So I want us to go to the next page, because I want to share with you how men bond in relationships, because there are two distinct components to this. And this actually is something, ladies, that we can learn from men, just like men look at us to learn how they can be more vulnerable, to learn how they can express their emotions in a positive way, because men aren't taught how to express their emotions. Right? Men are taught to, don't cry. That's not manly. Da, da, da. If you express how you feel, they're going to think you're weak, all this other stuff. So they've been given a bum rap as well. So they haven't been taught that. And so men look to you to learn how. So here's an area where you actually, if you choose to, in a very positive and healthy way, look at men to learn how to do this in your life as well, because men view, in terms of bonding with their partners, there's two things. The first one, in part one, I'm gonna just say sex, okay? But there are two ways in which even sex is considered with men in a relationship. Now, in Manifest Your Man, we go into this much deeper with the training there, because there's a whole entire training that gets into it, especially the psychology behind it. And I also forgot to mention that if any of you want to speak with me about Journey and Manifest Your Man, whether it's group or it's one-on-one or even home study, just go ahead and put your in chat, just write Vixen in there, and then I will contact you so we can have a discussion. Like I'm having several discussions with ladies tomorrow. So when it comes to the first part is sex. And then even on the sex, it's in two different ways. So I want you to put in sex one way, and then part number two under sex. So what happens is, here's the first way men view sex in a relationship. And it would be for a pure physical release, just pure physical. They see it as a physical act. It's fun, it's enjoyment. Some men see it as a confidence boost, to boost their own ego, and also as a stress relief. Yes, like how women may go to a massage to get a massage for a stress relief. A lot of men, they use sex as a stress relief. So that is one way that men view sex, all right, in terms of with a woman. That's why it's easier for men to have one night stands, and they don't think anything wrong of it. Now, here's the other way sex plays in a relationship with a woman, and it's for bonding in that relationship. But here's how that bonding occurs. The bonding occurs if part two is involved. And part two, so I want you to write where it says part two, right there, I want you to put intimacy, okay? I want you to put intimacy, because intimacy is what changes the dynamic of sex with a man in a relationship. So with this, when a man is in a relationship with you, and if there is intimacy that is in that relationship, and intimacy, I love how my mentor, Dr. Ava Cadell, how she phonetically broke it down. She said, intimacy is into me, see, right? Being able to see into another person and allowing another person to see into you, okay? So when a man has that component in a relationship, it transfers or transcends the sexual physical act into bonding. When the intimacy is not there, there's no bonding. Then for a man, it's just a physical act. It's just a sexual release. This is why if you're in a sexless relationship or a sexless marriage, that's why it bombs. And this is why I always tell ladies, don't use sex as a weapon with your partner, because you will always lose. And what happens is when there is a sexless marriage, because I've coached people that are in sexless marriages, I even got a call and was consulting with someone last week about this very same thing. What happened is these men, they are still getting their satisfaction, but they're getting it someplace else. They're going to a massage parlor where they can get a happy ending. They're going to porn. They're going to get a prostitute or whatever, an escort, whatever the case may be, because they do need that release. And if they're not getting it in their relationship, they're going to get it someplace else. And so this is why the second checkpoint is so important, because this is how you may be sabotaging your relationships and didn't even know it. And so that is the defining line. And so this is why the intimacy, which is part two, is extremely important, because when you have that and then the sex, this is how your man is bonding with you. Okay. And if that's not happening, he's not bonding with you. And then that's how men fall out of love with their partners, is because that need is not being met. Just like if your emotional needs aren't being met, you check out of the relationship as well. And so it's the same thing on the other side. Now, when it comes to the intimacy, here's what's key behind the intimacy part. It's about being, feeling, and showing your vulnerable self. That is what's required for intimacy. Otherwise, you're wearing a mask, okay? You're wearing a mask. And if you're wearing that mask, what happens is your partner is not even seeing the true you. Okay. And this is also about your self-acceptance, and then for him to accept you and for you to accept him as well. So that's the key. One of the real big keys around part two in establishing the intimacy is the vulnerability piece, right? And in order to do that, if you look on that feminine and masculine energy chart, you'll actually see that vulnerability is a feminine energy strength, all right? And so if any of you are having challenges and the fear of vulnerability, I definitely recommend that you Google Brene Brown. She spells her first name B-R-E-N-E, Brene Brown, and the power of vulnerability. Now, when I'm working with my clients, and even in the group coaching and things of that nature, I actually provide, I share that training or that video with them, because to really tap into that, because it's a powerful thing in which you have your vulnerability. All right. And here's the other thing. Men look to you for that. Just like I said before, they're looking to you for it. And what happens is when you are able to be vulnerable in a healthy way, what happens is men see you as more valuable, because then they can relax around you. They feel more comfortable around you. And then it also is a cue to them. They're like, okay, if she is showing me her vulnerable self, that means I can be vulnerable with her. And when a man can be vulnerable with you, that's when he will show his emotions to you, right? So this is how it all plays together. This is how it all fits together, okay? And so what happens is that is so powerful. And like I said, men will do anything to do this. And here's why. Because you are combining seduction, which makes a man look good and feel good. So it's two things. When you are being seductive and when you're being your sex symbol for your man, one, he likes the visual that he's seeing, right? So you look good, and then it also makes him feel good. So when you combine that, and what you're also doing is you're combining it with intimacy, which is a feeling state. And so what happens is you're doubling up on the joy juice. You're doubling up on the feeling state. So he's feeling good from the intimacy, but he's also feeling good by sharing this seductive and sassiness with you. So it's like compound interest, right? Is what you're adding to this. And that is the power. And that is what a lot of people are afraid of as to why they try to control women, because men will do so many things just to experience this and stuff like that. And so this is why you do it in a healthy way, in a genuine way, in an authentic way, and not as manipulation. And because what happens is that's the power that you have, right? And so when we go through this journey, it's really teaching you how to leverage that within yourself. And first, I want you to ask yourself, what makes you uncomfortable? So that's the first thing. I want you to ask yourself within awareness, what makes you uncomfortable about stepping into this for yourself? And then I will also want you to, for self-awareness, whenever in your relationships, if you've ever withheld intimacy or you've withheld sex, because intimacy and sex are not the same. Sex is the physical, intimacy is the emotional. They're separate. Here's what happens with most women. They clunk them together and they make them the same thing, and they're not. And that is also part of what sabotages relationships with women, because they're two separate things. Men see them as two separate things, but women see them as one together. And it creates a lot of power struggles, a lot of sabotage and misunderstanding. So what happens is, I want you to think, if you were to separate those in your history, in your life, how differently would your relationship be if you're currently in one? And how differently do you feel your relationships would have been if you knew this before? Because I want you to see how it may or may not be showing up in your current relationships, so that you know what you need to course correct, all right? What you need to course correct. And so what happens is that is very important to know from there. And I'm really curious when we get to the Q&A to find out from the ladies what some of these ratings were, right? And so, here's a good way to do this. Why don't you go ahead and do a rating for this? So I want you to go and do 3 ratings. All right. The first rating I want you to do, and so be rating it from 1 to 10. Your seductive skills. On a scale from 1 to 10, how seductive would you rate yourself? 1 is not at all. You wouldn't even notice if somebody was flirting with you. And number 10 is you can seduce like Marilyn Monroe or Beyonce. All right. So that would be on the 10 scale. So where do you run in that rating on 1 to 10? Okay. Because you need to know what your benchmark is so that you can know how you're improving. So the second rating you're going to do is intimacy. How would you rate you being intimate with your partners? on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, 1 on the low end, 10 on the maximum end. And then the third rating would be around sex. And this would be, how comfortable are you in your sexual expression? This would also include, do you feel comfortable being butt naked in front of your partner with the lights blaring on? Because I know there are women who are married and they are uncomfortable having their husband see their body, so they have sex with the lights off. And I will tell you, ladies, men want sex with the lights on because of why? Their primary sense is sight. So they want to see what is going on. This is why, you know, back in the day when they had mirrors on the ceiling and everything else, case in point, is they want to see. So if you're having sex with your partner and the lights are off, he's not getting that satisfaction. So what happens is, that's how I want you, those are all the things I want to take in consideration, especially with the sex rating. So 1 on the low end, 10, you are a sex kitten mistress and you can teach it just like I can, right? So I want you to do those ratings so you can know where your benchmark is. And then I want you to see how close is your intimacy and sex scores with each other, and then compare that to your seduction scores, all right? Because that will tell you, it's like, all right, I need to work on this one area a little bit more, okay? And then this is how we all play in the sandbox together. All right, so ladies, when I go to the next page, will be page 8, all right. So I want to share with you here about how you can step into this and have some fun from this training here tonight, all right? So in terms of being your man's sex symbol, and also for long term, I want to share another funny story. Now, this is something that I teach, and it's also in the training, because I share that story there too, but I'll share it with you here because it really encapsulates the power that you have. Now, one of the things that many times that couples get into, you know, headbutts about is when he wants to spend time with the boys, right? And that is something that comes up, and, you know, the woman wants him to be home. He wants to go out with his boys. He's like, oh, you'll just get into trouble. And then there's like this nagging as well as words that go back and forth. Here's something that you can do instead that will inspire your man versus nag him, and you will actually get what you want so much faster. So what happens is, your man is going out with the boys. Tell him, hey, have a great time. You know, have a good time with your boys. Go ahead and decompress. Don't get into too much trouble. But he walks out the door. Here's what you do. Now, you get into something, you know, sassy, or maybe you're watching a particular TV show. And then what happens is, you just text your man and you go, I hope you're having a wonderful time with the boys. You know what? I'm enjoying myself, and I'm enjoying myself with this beautiful lingerie. Depending on when you come home, you may be able to experience it for yourself. Have a good time. And then that's the text that you send. And of course, you send a picture. Maybe you have on these gorgeous heels and you have on these fishnet stockings, whatever the case may be. Just send them a picture of that. Nowhere did I say, ask him when he's going to be home. Nope. All you say is, you know, depending on what time you come home, I may still have it on or not, and you may be able to enjoy it. What happens is, that is going to motivate your man to come home sooner versus later. And what happens is, when he does come home, what mood do you think he's going to be in? He is going to be in a happy mood. He's going to come home faster. He's going to spend time with his boys, and he's like, oh, it's been great, but I have something better waiting for me at home. I'm so glad I can kick it with you guys, but I got to go. And then he's going to leave and he's going to come home. And when he does come home, he may even bring you something, where he may bring you, it's like, hey, since I was there, I brought some wine back, or he may pick up some flowers, whatever the case may be. But what happens when he comes home, he is going to be in a good mood. And what mood do you think you're going to be in? You're going to be in just a good mood with him, because one, he came home early, you didn't have to nag him, and you're having a great time. And so that is the power that is here. So your man will crave you, and not somebody else. This is why you're doing this. You're also doing this so you can be happy and fulfilled in your own relationships, intimately as well as sexually. Because you will know, as long as there's intimacy also in your relationship, when you then are having sex with your man, you know that your man is bonding with you when you do that. And here's the other thing. Research has also shown, and like I said, research has also shown that because this is how men bond, there's also a higher degree of fidelity in those relationships, whether you're married or not, but there's a higher degree of fidelity in those relationships where there is a healthy, intimate, and sexual union between the partners. It really ensures fidelity. Now, there are always exceptions to the rule. There could be a man who's a sex addict, so you can be having as much sex as you want in the relationship and he still needs to have more. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the average man that's there, right? It really promotes fidelity. So if you've ever dealt with infidelity or anything like that in your relationship, that's something I definitely want you to consider and not go down the sabotage road of constantly checking in on your partner, right? That's bringing baggage into a new relationship. Now, here's how you can start to make the shift and step into being your own sex symbol, right? Like I told you, mine is Scarlett O'Dare. That's my sex symbol, Scarlett O'Dare. And so what happens is you're going to be shifting this by stepping into that aspect of who you are. So there are two different ways in which you can do this. So the first way or category are what I call historic seductresses, and there are three. Okay, so the first one is the geisha. You know, geishas, right? Back in Japan, and men have fantasies about geishas and stuff like that. So the first one are geishas. Now, in parentheses, this is what I want you to put next to geisha, because each of these archetypes have a different feel to them. And everyone is a combination of two. One is going to be your primary, the other one's going to be your secondary, okay? And depending on where you are in the stage of your life, they may actually swap. And that actually is going on with me right now. That's what I'm experiencing right now. So the geisha, in parentheses, I want you to put the energy associated with that is innocent, demure, I would say the stereotypical femininity, stereotype is there. So that would be with the geisha, okay? The second one is the tantrika, and I'll spell that. It's spelled Tantrika, tantrika. And in parentheses, I want you to put there for that archetype, seductive, sensual intensity, free-spirited, and spiritually attuned, right? So the Tantra has more of a spiritual essence because Tantra is sacred sexuality, right? And Tantrikas are women that practice that, okay? And the third category or the third archetype is the courtesan, okay? Not courtesans were well known in Europe back in the day. And you spell that as Courtesan, courtesan. And in parentheses next to that, I want you to put sexually forward, very intense, confident, and strategic, okay? The modern equivalent of a courtesan would be a sugar baby. That would be the modern day equivalent of a courtesan is a sugar baby, okay? And stuff like that. Or it would be a woman who, what I would say is like has that Mae West, that Mae West energy kind of going on and things of that nature. So these are women that they're okay being sexually forward. They don't apologize for it, whatever, but they are not stupid. They're very strategic women. They're like business people, the whole 9 yards. So that would be the courtesan archetype, okay? So those are, if you choose and you want to go by the historic seductress archetype, those are the main three. Now, the two that I am, so I want you to determine which are the two that you are, and is it different than the energy of where you want to be, right? There's where you are, and there's also the energy that you want to step into, okay? So for example, in my formative years, I was the geisha, not even that. I wouldn't even say I had the geisha. I had the innocent demure part going on. That was probably about it. But what happens is growing up, but now as an adult, after I embraced my feminine essence, I live in the tantrika courtesan. Those are my two, right? So for a long time, tantrika was primary, courtesan was secondary. Then for about, I would say, maybe about 10 years, it flipped. Courtesan was the primary energy and tantrika was my second energy. Well, now, guess what? They're flipping back again. They're flipping back to how it was before. Tantrika is my primary and courtesan is my secondary energy. Scarlet O'Dare and stuff like that. Dare to be sexy, dare to be intelligent, dare to be sassy. That's where the O'Dare came from. It was all those things. I wanted to be a daring woman. So I embraced it as my persona name and stuff like that. So that would be if you go that route. Now, here's the second category of archetypes. And these are from goddess figures, right? So the first goddess archetype would be the warrior goddess, all right? So in parentheses, I want you to put, here's the energy behind the warrior goddess: intense personality and a defender. So in modern, AKA modern society, I'm gonna use TV stuff because it's the easiest thing. Think of Wonder Woman, okay? Think of Wonder Woman. She literally exemplifies the warrior goddess, right? She is a badass woman, kicking ass, taking names, but she's also vulnerable, right? Especially if you saw the last movie, even when she was in her Wonder Woman garb, she still showed her vulnerability, even in the midst of fighting, right? And so if you wanted to know what that looks like, that's why I want to give you Wonder Woman. You can take a look at it and see that's what a warrior goddess energy looks like. Now, the second one is mother goddess, all right? So that is the energy behind that is nurturing, caregiver personality. So TV personalities or mother goddess figures would be like Claire Huxtable in the Cosbys or Laura Lee Gilmore in the Gilmore Girls, right? That would be like that mother goddess energy. Now, the third one, goddess archetype, is going to be the love goddess, okay? So with the love goddess, it's romantic idealistic, right? Your romantic idealistic energy. And a modern day equivalent would be like Jennifer Aniston. That would be like the love goddess, okay? Jennifer Aniston. And the fourth one is the sex goddess, right? So the sex goddess is slightly edgy, playful personality, right? More daring, and that's out there. So a modern day equivalent to that would be Angelina Jolie, right? Would be like the sex goddess. In back of the day, Josephine Baker also would be considered a sex goddess, just like Marilyn Monroe would be considered a sex goddess, okay? So all those things like that. And so wanted to give you that. And like, even in those goddess archetypes, you will be a combination of at least two, right? A primary and a secondary and stuff like that. So if I were to play in the goddess archetype space, I would be the warrior goddess and the sex goddess. Because that's how I roll. That's my energy. And what happens is, and embrace it. And because all of them are valuable, all of them are unique in their own right. All right. And so I want you to play with this. So here's your love work from this little section over here. Now, once you kind of go through, determine which category. I want you to start with one of the categories. Either do category 1 archetypes or category 2 archetypes. We need to keep this simple, okay? Then here's the other thing. I want you to focus on the archetypes that the energy you want to step into, not where you feel you are, what you want to step into, okay? Now, after you select your category, then you determine what's your primary and what's your secondary one for you, okay? So then after you determine that, what I want you to do from there is, what about the archetype do you like? So I just want you to make a list. What about the archetype do you like? Okay. And then you're going to make another list. What about the archetypes give you pause? What apprehension may you have? What fears may come up? So, for example, a fear that may come up is, what are other people going to think? A fear that may come up is, you don't want to look stupid. A fear that may come up is, you don't want to come off as you're trying too hard, right? So what are those things? Even any beliefs that you have, like if you grew up with a belief that a woman who was being seductive was sinful or being manipulative, and you're afraid of being considered that, put that in there. What gives you pause and why you're afraid of? And then the next thing is why. Why do you have that apprehension or fear? And where did that apprehension and fear come from? And when I say where it came from, who programmed that in you? Because you were programmed to believe that. So who programmed you to believe that? Was it your family? Was it a spiritual institution or a cultural institution, right? So where did it come from? And then here's the next question that you ask yourself after identifying where that belief came from, meaning where that programming came from. Then what I want you to then ask from that is examine their relationships, okay? So whoever programmed this into you, whether it's people or an institution, examine, are they happy in their life? Are they happy in their relationships? If it's like an organization, right? Whether it's a religious or cultural or government organization, then the question for that is, okay, how much has that belief actually furthered that cause along? Are they still talking about the same thing going for hundreds of years? So if the same conversation is still going on for hundreds and thousands of years, that's a clear sign it doesn't work, right? And that it is programming that is not natural. That is why it still does not work, because it's going against our nature. And that's why it's a conundrum. So this is how you get your self-awareness, everybody. This is how you get the self-awareness. You got to pull it apart, okay? And so I want you to do that. And then after you land on your archetype, then have some fun and play with it a little bit, right? Just play with it a little bit. So if you were going to play with the tantrika energy, which is sensual intensity, it's like, how can I be more sensual today, right? How can I be more sassy today, right? And it could be about, I'm going to be more sassy today by establishing eye contact with men. That's a way in which you can do that, right? And things of that nature, or having conversations like some of the conversations I was just sharing with you that I had and stuff like that. So what happens is have fun and then play with it a little bit. See how you feel, right? And then what you'll notice is you may start to notice that people will start reacting to you differently. And this is many times how it shows up. They'll go, did you do something different with your hair? Maybe you're wearing a different lipstick. They will think it's something, they'll feel the change in you, but they can't quite pin it down. So they'll think that you changed something with your exterior appearance. But in fact, what you first did was you're changing your internal barometer of how you feel about being your own sex symbol. And that is what they're feeling. And then what happens is with your renewed confidence, you're actually showing that because you're now in alignment with your core essence as a woman, right? That's why. And so this is how it all plays together. And when you are doing this, ladies, your man is going to be right there, right? He is going to be there with you. And what happens is because you are also giving him a need that he desires, just as you desire for your man to give you the emotional connection that you desire and that you need and that you want. All right. So what happens is I wanted to I wanted to cover over with everyone. And then here's how, and I'll check chat in a moment because I saw there were 2 things in chat and I'll be able to check that in a moment. So that, and here's like a really good time. If you have questions that you want to start formulating, you can go ahead and put it in chat so we can kind of get that part going. But this is how you can go deeper in terms of in Manifest Your Man. So for those of you that want to do that journey with me, like I said, put in chat Vixen, so I can contact you. And this would be if you want to do group, if you want to do one-on-one, or if you want to do Manifest Your Man as home study. Either way, because there are different ways in which to do it. But in terms of the sex symbol and really showing up in a powerful way like this for your man, really it covers in these 4 areas. Now, it's not just in these 4, but these are going to be the 4 modules that will help contribute and really teach this within you. So the first thing is in module number 2 is rocking your self-image. This goes right after self-worth, right? We talked about self-worth last week. Self-image is right after that because self-worth is how you value yourself on the inside, but self-image is how you project your value to other people, and how you project your value is how people will treat you. So you remember what I said in the very beginning, how a high quality man may kind of do sexual innuendo because he wants to see if you have standards and if you have boundaries. It goes right there with the self-image, right there, right? It's like he's determining how he's going to treat you and things of that nature. And it all comes from how you react. Men treat women according to how the women react, is how they then go, okay, is it safe for me to venture this area with her because of how she did or didn't react, right? So self-image goes right there. Now this is just a snapshot that I put on this one sheet. To get the full detail, just click on the link and go there and it'll have all the full detail of everything that you would experience and go through. But then module number 4, that is where you'll be developing your Love Goddess persona, right? So it's the same Love Goddess persona development that I do in my Love Goddess Mastery. It's just in Love Goddess Mastery, there are certain elements of the persona work that we do go deeper because Manifest Your Man is a totally different route. But the reason why I do Love Goddess persona work in there is to get you out of your everyday personality so that you can step into this power to be your man's confidant, to be your man's sex symbol, so that you can enter into his castle and so you can be into his heart. And so this is about you getting into your sassy and your seductive and your feminine essence for yourself. And that is how you're going to be doing it, by developing your Love Goddess persona. So this is not make-believe. This is not pretending. We're not faking it till we make it, right? What happened is your persona is an aspect of you that exists within you, but she has been on lockdown. She's been in jail in this little cage within your heart. That cage, she was put there by all of the conditioning. And so with the Love Goddess persona, you will get the key that will unlock that cage so the door can open so you can fly confidently in your feminine power. And it's through the persona work that we do. And so then in module number 10, so that first 2 were all about you, right? Because in the first part of Manifest Your Man, that journey is 6 months. I'm with the ladies for 6 months, and think of it in 3 parts. The first part is all about you. That's where we go, self-worth, self-image. You do your Love Goddess persona, dealing with mindset, because you have to be healthy, whole, and complete going in the relationship. And if you're currently in the relationship, to stay in it. Okay. So this is why those are focused on you. But then the other 2, it's on him, because on the rest of the program, after everyone develops their Love Goddess persona, you will do the rest of the training from the eyes of your persona. That's how you do the rest of the training. And I always tell ladies, men will come in your life. And if you already have a man in your life, when you do the training from the program, you'll be doing it on your partner. So if you have a partner, you'll be doing all the training on your current partner. If you don't have a partner, a man, I would say about 75% of the time, men come into the ladies' lives when they're doing the training. So then when men do come in, you will then be practicing all of the training with them, all right? And so this is why you're in the persona, because you do the rest of the training from that lens. So in module number 10, this is where I teach the ladies around men and their emotions, really dealing with the emotional landscape of Mars, right? because men process it very, very differently than we do. And so you have to learn how they do that so you can tap into that for them. So that would be in module 10. That's also coming into the vulnerable state, how to get there with a man. And then module number 12, men and sex, right? And so what I was teaching here in that segment, we just go a lot deeper, especially around the psychology around that and how it plays with the male psyche and what's going on in his head and how it affects his body. Just like I said about the sensory with the sense of smell, right? That is a chemical inducement within his body. It's not something that they are making up. It's how their body operates, right? And so that's how come I get into that, so you can know what is nature and what is conditioning. That way you can navigate it more successfully. And that also addresses the second top reasons relationships fail. So that is in module number 12 of the program. And the program has 13 modules. It's 13 training segments that I take everyone through in Manifest Your Man. So for those of you that want to go deeper and things of that nature, that is how you would be doing that in Manifest Your Man. So I wanted to do that here. So here is the bonus that I have for everyone in week 2. And we're going to be getting into the Q&A very quickly. But here's the bonus that I have for this week. Like I said, every week is going to be kind of switching around a little bit. So for those of you, if you're going into Manifest Your Man group, and even if you do VIP, there's something special and different that I do for my VIP ladies. Those are the ones that do one-on-one coaching with me. So if you take advantage, this week I have a conversation with you and stuff of that nature. So that's when it's going to be valid until the 14th, which is right before the next class. You'll get the $100 in Vixen Bucks that you can apply to group or to a VIP with me. And here's the other thing that's going to be coming with this. When I do the group coaching program, all of the ladies also receive 3 one-on-one accountability sessions with me, and they're for 30 minutes, right? My one-on-one clients, it's hour sessions, and it's the entire time. I pace your program when you're a one-on-one, and I can customize your program because we're working together one-on-one. So when I do group, what I do is I give accountability sessions so that you don't feel that you're lost. And many times when we do group, if you want something that's a little bit more personal or specific and you don't want to share it in the group format, that's what I have the accountability sessions for. So everyone in group they receive 3. It's every other month. So if you were to sign on this week up until the 14th, I will give you an extra 3. So I'm doubling it for you, and then you'll have 1 every single month. And that's how you can do that. Or you can actually combine them, meaning you can have 3 60-minute sessions with me if you want to combine them. So that's fine as well. So that is the bonus that I'm giving this week for anyone that wants to discuss with me and chat and enter into Manifest Your Man. And that's what we can definitely do. So with that, everybody, I am going to open up. Let's see here. All right. I am going to, let me look in chat very quickly. All right. And what I will do is I will try to unmute, try to unmute, and I'm going to see how to do the background is. I don't know why I just did that. Let me, okay. All right. So what happens is if you would like to ask a question, okay, if you would like to ask a question, why don't you go ahead and put it in chat. There's one question in there already. And yes, and if you want to do the Vixen, I see some people had sent Vixen to me in my private or directly to me, and that's perfectly fine. So go ahead and do that. So one of the questions we had here from June is, how is sharing boundaries involved in intimacy? All right. Boundaries is how you teach people to treat you. That's what boundaries are. And this is why I always, in June, if you are still on the line, I'm trying to see if you're still on the line, still on the call. Okay, let's see here. Hello, how are you, dear?
Hey, love. Thank you. Yes, I'm great. And this is incredibly helpful.
Oh, no problem. So let me see here. So June, in terms of your question, it's a very excellent question. So first of all, thank you so much for being on the call and for asking the question. Now, before I start going into answering that, would you like to share what's also a little bit more behind that?
Yeah.
Behind your question?
Yeah. I have been courting a gentleman for over 4 years, and he recently had a change where he's more available now. He sold his business, so
Mhm,
he has more time to be. We have more time to be together,
mhm,
and basically we had our first meeting was like a 4 hour, just becoming more intimate. And I know that he trusts me. Like, I know I'm his confidant because he tells me all the things that we learned last week. Like, he discloses, his darkness, he discloses
mhm,
his plans, all of that.
mhm,
Um, and so, this particular 4 hour session that we had, I had set a clear boundary that there's no sex, right? Like, don't, like, I want to set them up to succeed when they come over, and I say they, but it really is just him. And so anyway, during that time, I was surprised because he wanted me to undress, but it was in a, like you mentioned earlier, it was in a dark space. Like, he told me what he needed.
mhm.
So, and I was true to myself where, I did what felt aligned for me, and I did not go past the boundaries that I had set with him, and I was consistent with him. So,
Mhm.
and then I loved what you said about men view sex and intimacy differently, and I want to create both. I want that sustainability. So that's the background between it.
Right. And then when you say that, you said courting for 4 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, because he was very much in. Now, here's the other thing.
Hmm.
I'm glad that you shared that. And this is also for everybody. With men, what they do for their livelihood is very much wrapped up in their how they view themselves and their self-worth. So what happens is when a man is focused on creating his empire or his position, or he wants to get to a certain level, they have tunnel vision.
Hmm.
Okay. They have tunnel vision. They're like this and stuff like that. If a man is not doing well financially, and if he's a high caliber man, he will not even want to date and stuff like that. He will put it off. And because it feeds into being able to protect, provide, and all of that stuff. So in the 4 years, so going back to what you were saying, sweetheart. And so in the 4 years, was it long distance? Was it because and you said session, June, because like June, when you said session, right? So that may be your word for rendezvous. I'm not sure. That
Yes,
may be
yes.
okay. I just wanted to, that may be your word for rendezvous. So
I,
was it long distance? Was it because
um, I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
mm-mm,
It
mm-mm,
it was we were in close proximity. The first time that we met, like 4 years ago, he was incredibly honest and vulnerable at that time.
mm-hmm,
He told me that he had a business that it was going to take him 5 years to get it established. Um, he told me that he wouldn't have very much time. He told me all the things from his past that I guess had interfered with previous
mm-hmm,
relationships.
mm-hmm,
So he was very forthright in everything that he has told me about himself. Like, he has a high self-awareness, has
mm-hmm.
been, it's come true. And it's only been 4 years in his business, but with the market and all the changes, I guess because of COVID, it was the best time for him to sell his business. So he did.
Right.
And
And so that goes to what I was
yeah,
just saying.
yeah,
Now
yes,
that he sold it, he can focus. So
yes.
boundaries and intimacy, they work hand in hand.
Mhm,
You can't really separate it, because like I said, boundaries is how you teach people to treat you.
mhm,
So and then here's the other thing is also clearly communicating your boundaries, but in a way that's not dictating a laundry list of requirements, rules, and all this other stuff, right? And this is why I use effective intimacy communication to teach you guys to how to communicate that. So when you have boundaries, you're also having self-respect. Okay. When there is self-respect, people, by virtue of that, will respect you more. When they respect you more, they will trust you more. And then that's the foundation also of intimacy, because without trust, there is no intimacy. So if any of you are listening to this, you have trust issues, you're going to have challenges with intimacy, because it requires you to be fully open. So does that make sense? Because what I hear you doing, and here's one of the things, so June, is how are you playing with your feminine playfulness and not being too serious?
I'm incredibly playful.
Okay.
He and I use fantasy a lot, and that's one of the things that is so much fun with us. In the 4 years, we've only had 2 makeout sessions, but I know that I can be all of me in that environment with him. Like, it's completely safe.
And fantasy is a way to test out certain things before you do it.
I like that.
Okay. Because that's the other thing that stops women dead in their tracks, is they feel that I'm going to say something wrong, or I'm going to look stupid, or they're afraid of looking stupid, or what if he doesn't like it, or whatever. Well, whatever it is that you want to do, share it with him in the form of a fantasy and see what his reaction is. And if he has a favorable reaction, that's your green light to do it, to actually do it. If he doesn't have a favorable reaction to that, then you go, oh, thank God I did it like a fantasy. I saved myself the embarrassment. That's how you get around that. Okay, that's one way of getting around that. All right. All right, darling.
Yes. Thank you.
Right. No problem. No problem. So hopefully, I'm glad that you're on the call and everything else. So the next one, if you go ahead and put yourself on mute, that'd be fabulous. There's a question from Arlene. All right. What resources would you recommend for styling for women over 50 who want to play up their more seductive feminine side, but find the clothing choices seem to be geared for those who are younger, aiming for the grown and sexy vibe? I'm in my 50s. So I'm in that club with you. All right. So here's what that is in terms of style. It was kind of funny. I was watching something today, how this whole fast casual industry, how it's the exact opposite of sustainability, and how it only gears towards the young people. So here's what I would say around that. And this is why you do your persona, because it's going to be different for different people. So here's how to answer that question, how we go within the training. So what happens is when you develop your love goddess persona, or the archetype, right? And so your love goddess persona is developed in a very specific way. Now, one of the things, the questions that's asked as part of the development is, what is the time period that you felt women were seductive, right? And so first, think there. So for me, it was classic Hollywood. That was the genre, that was the time that I felt women were uber seductive, and they were very tasteful, right? I mean, I think nowadays in our modern society, I think especially in entertainment and wanting that 15 minutes of fame, women are degrading themselves just for fame, and they're having, everything is out there. But there was a time but there are a lot of women, especially starlets, who are still very classy and very seductive. And so for me, it was classic Hollywood. So I said, okay, what about classic Hollywood? And I looked at the style of how the women dressed and during that period, right? And so they had a lot of pencil skirts, they wore their heels, they wore a lot of red, like red lipstick, right? And things of that nature, the tops. And so there's a distinct style. And so what happens is then I got the style guide. So when the ladies do their persona work, after they develop their persona and they have an idea of what, era or genre or niche or whatever it is it's in, then they're provided several different style guides for them to choose so they can then reinvent their look and style according to their persona development. And then they start living from that. So there's a lot more to it than that, but that can be something I can answer here. It's what era or time did you find sexy and seductive? Just like I found classic Hollywood. And so when you determine what that is, then you kind of look and see, okay, how were the women dressed, right? How did they do their makeup? And then what happens is you then find modern equivalents to that and stuff. So like a modern equivalent to a classic Hollywood would be like Dita Von Teese. I know a lot of people may or may not be familiar with her, but she's also a big burlesque performer. But she is like a modern day classic Hollywood, Dita Von Teese. So my clients, they know that she's one of my inspirations for my persona. So they sent me a big coffee table book of her with all of her stuff in it. So that's how you would start. So that's what I would recommend that you do, Arlene, is to look there and really start with, what do you think is sexy and seductive? And then look and see how the women were demonstrating that. And then look and see how, okay, what are modern equivalents to that? Okay. And then go from there. And you're like, okay, this is how I can get inspiration or replicate part of that look in modern times, right? So you wouldn't be dressing or going to like Forever 21, for example. Which case, you may be going more to like, say, Ann Taylor, maybe, I don't know. So it really depends on what is the energy that you want to exude. It really depends on that. It really depends on your archetype, because it's going to be different things for different people. So that's where I would recommend that you start to do that one. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Arlene. Things like that. I'm not sure if you're even still on the call. But if not, let me see. Oh, you are. But you'll be able to, if hopefully that clarified it for you. If not, you can hop on and unmute yourself. So let me see, do we have any other questions? So, because right now, those are the only two that I see. Let's see here. All right. So, ladies, do you have any other questions in terms of tonight? Okay, so from Dr. Brown. Oh, and this is Dr. Brown, but not Brene Brown. I'm like, oh my God, that would be hilarious if it was Dr. Brene Brown, but it's not. So he says here, she said here, Stacey, what was the name of that Hollywood diva? Okay, it depends which diva. So if you're talking about my inspiration, her name is Dita Von Teese. And I'll put it in chat. Dita Von Teese. All right, Dita Von Teese. She used to be married to Marilyn Manson, if you can believe that one, and stuff like that. But they're not married anymore. But she is, and if you know what, everybody, even if you're not into the classic Hollywood or into burlesque, and she was also a fetish model, read her story. Her story is really interesting because, first of all, Dita Von Teese is her persona name. Who else has persona names? Bruno Mars, that's his persona name because that's not his real name. Beyonce, when she's on stage, she has a persona name. So does, what was the model? Tyra Banks, she even has a persona name. So many people have persona names. And Dita Von Teese, that is her persona name. Actually, Marilyn Monroe is her persona name. Her birth name, I think, was Norma Jean or something like that, I think was her birth name. But Marilyn Monroe, that is her persona. So everybody, a lot of people have personas. So read Dita Von Teese's story, because you'll learn how she thought she was a wallflower, and how she was uninteresting, and how she felt she was unattractive, and what she did for herself to move out of that headspace. So it's really interesting. So that was my inspiration, but my persona name is Scarlett O'Dare. That's my persona name, Scarlett O'Dare. And many times when you do the persona work, you do it last. You put the name last. It's not the first thing you think of. You do the whole thing, and then you name your persona last, and you step into that energy and stuff like that. So hopefully that answers your question about the diva and everything else, who were my inspiration. But when you do the persona work, it's more than just that. So like when you do persona work, there's 4 inspirations that is part of development. There's your intellectual inspiration, your look and style inspiration, your personality inspiration, and your attitude inspiration. So that's why I said when we do the development, it goes deep. It's not superficial, and it's not one level. It's internal as well as external. And so Dita Von Teese was my inspiration for the look and style. My inspiration for intellect was Oprah. She was my inspiration there. For personality, I put I think, if I can remember how to pronounce her name correctly, Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen. And your inspiration doesn't even have to be a real person. It could be a character in a show. But that was my inspiration, I think, for personality. And then for attitude, I put cortisone for attitude and stuff like that. So what happens is, but I'm going to be updating it, because that's been my persona that I've been working with for almost 20 years. That's how long ago I developed this, and she is in time for an upgrade. And that's what I'm be doing this year when I do Manifest Your Man. So what happens, this is the level of fun that we go through. And so ladies, have fun, get into and be your sexy symbol for yourself. Have a good time with it, because when you do, even when you wear no makeup like I was, you are still going to be attracting men that want to talk to you, want to get your attention, because they are responding from your energy first. That is what they are picking up, and they are smelling you before they even see you. And that's the other thing I said in the very beginning, because all of this plays together, right? So this is how we play in the sandbox. So have a fun time and experiment. So this weekend, experiment with it. And then what happens is see what results you get, because you may be surprised, right? You may be surprised. So I want you to go ahead and do that. Have a good time and stuff like that. Oh, hold on. One more question came through. It always happens. One more question came through as I was about to go. All right. So this one is, if I have trust issues with men, would your program address this? This is what I would say. If you have trust issues, I would say let's talk, because it depends on how deep your trust issues are. So like I said, for the first, I guess this would be a good way to explain this. Manifest Your Man, like I said, it's 6 months and it's in 3 parts. And it's just the easiest way for me to explain this. And this is why I have the link, so you can get all the detail, because we would be here for another hour if I had to go through the whole entire thing. But what happens is the first part of Manifest Your Man, it focuses on you and your foundation. So this is why we do self-worth and self-image in the very beginning, because that is to address any old limiting beliefs, any toxic patterns, and also the itty bitty shitty committee is what I call it, which is to deal with guilt, shame, fear, and all of those lovely issues which sabotage us. So that is literally what we are dealing with in the very first part of Manifest Your Man, so that any kind of trust issues, any kind of resistance, whatever, doesn't trip you up going in the rest of the program. Okay, so this is why we do that in the beginning. We have to shake up that tree to shake out any of the dead leaves and the dead fruit, so that what's left is strong. Okay, so that's why I call tilling the soil and shaking the tree. And we do that in the first part. And so that is what will be to address that specifically. Now, depending on how deep the trust issues are, that's what's going to determine. So if it's If it's really deep, it may be love goddess is what you have to do. If there are certain circumstances or a couple of things that just need to be massaged out, then you'll be able to do that in the first part of Manifest Your Man. But I would need to speak with you first, and we would have to have a talk so I can just assess that. And then that way I can tell you what would be better. There are also some people that do Manifest Your Man, and if they do have deeper issues, then they actually do VIP. So they can just work with me one-on-one. So that's another thing there. So it just kind of like depends on that. So we can have, you know, a talk around that. So that's like the first part. And so that's where we do self-worth, self-image, we do confidence, we do your love goddess persona. Okay. And we also do mindset stuff. So that's the first part. The second part of Manifest Your Man, that's when you start designing your relationship and understanding men. So in the second part is where we kind of identify, do you have any subconscious man-hating energy? So we want to bring that to the surface. Just like in the first part, we were dealing with any negative thoughts that you have around yourself. Well, in the second part, we're like, okay, do you have any kind of negative man-hating energy, subconscious or not? We need to bring that up to the surface so we can get that out, because it will trip you up the rest of the way. So in the second part we do there, we also in the second part, we really understand the different male personality types as well as female. A lot of people only think of alpha, you know, someone's alpha or someone that's beta, but there are many different personality types. And so the reason why I teach that is so that this is part of your man selection, to make sure that you are picking the right partner, also with your personalities, that they match with each other. So you need to know how these different personalities show up in men, how they look. So we take care of that in the second part. We also is where you do develop your relationship roadmap. And that is according to the 7 relationship pillars. All right. So we do that in the 7 relationship pillars, which do include the 4 pillars of love, but it also includes financial, spiritual, and social. Now, when you're doing that relationship blueprint and that relationship roadmap, this is where you are designing your relationship. So if you're in a current relationship, you would kind of go from that perspective, you would go, all right, here's where I would love my relationship to evolve with my partner. And that's the perspective you would take it from. If you are a free agent like myself, you are designing, okay, this is what I want it to look like from scratch. Now, I've already done my blueprint. So with me, I'm actually going to be updating my blueprint, which hasn't been updated since 2001 or 2002, when I first originally wrote mine, right? So it's being updated for the first time and things of that nature. And because it's very, very involved that you do. It takes some time. So what happens is you develop that there. And then the other thing that you're doing there, though, but here's the key. And this is what makes this program different than other people's programs from what I've heard from clients and students, okay? When you're designing your relationship, yes, you are designing your relationship. When you're designing your relationship, you're going to be taking a 360-degree view of that relationship. And this is what that looks like. You are going to be first saying, okay, in these 7 key relationship areas, the qualities that you want in your partner, the qualities that you want in your man, even the one that you currently got. What you're going to do is you're going to go okay, I'm going to be going from scratch and stuff like that. So you're still going to do it. Even if you have a partner, what are the qualities that you want in these 7 key relationship areas? But then the next thing you do is, how does your man treat you in these 7 relationship areas? You saw the nuance that was placed on it, okay? And then the third component, that what makes it a 360-degree view, you're then going to say how you show up in the relationship in these 7 key relationship areas, because that is the one thing that women miss. And if you ever hear a woman say, oh, I got lost in the relationship, I lost myself, I wasn't doing any of my interests, it was because you didn't see how you were going to show up in the relationship. That's how you got lost in the relationship. This is a 360-degree lens that I'm talking about, okay? This is just in the second part of Manifest Your Man. That's just in the second part of Manifest Your Man. And then in that part as well, you learn the Vixen Man Plan, as well as how to choose the right partner, or if you're in a relationship currently, do you stay or do you leave, right? Do you love them or do you leave them, kind of deal. And then we also determine that in the second part so that you're not wasting your time. Then after you do your blueprint, you know what's really important to you. So then we lead into the third part of Manifest Your Man. That is when you learn specific man skills. So there's going to be one module, one training is how men think. Another one is how men love. The next, another module is how men process their emotions, like was module number 10. Then there's going to be another training, how men and sex, which is number 12, and then men and money. And that is about, so your man can spoil you, how you inspire your man to give, pamper, and all this other stuff. And so that's actually the very last module on Manifest Your Man. It's module number 13 is with the money. And so that's the third part. The third part of Manifest Your Man are the specific man training skills, so that you don't sabotage your relationship that you're currently in, or you don't sabotage the relationship that you want to be in. And then by having this blueprint, the men that will come in your life, that will come, because they're going to come. So the men that come into your life, you then have this blueprint to see, is he close or not? And if he's not close, goodbye. Thanks, but no thanks. And you won't be wasting your time. Now, here's the one question, or I always tell this to everyone. Full disclosure, you're not going to get 100% of your blueprint, because that would be perfection, and perfection does not exist. Okay, that's just setting yourself up for disappointment. However, if you got 65% or 70% of your blueprint, would you be upset with that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And what happens is that is actually how it truly works. You're going to get a majority of it, right? You're going to get a majority of it. And that's what Jennifer, right? Jennifer there that just got engaged, right? When she sent me the note in Facebook, one of the things she says, I'm working my blueprint. That's what she was talking about, right? So when she said I'm working my blueprint, that's exactly what she was talking about, what I just described to you. So that's what the blueprint would look like. And that's what the journey, Manifest Your Man, Cliff Notes version real quick, is all about. And that's why you have the detail there. So yeah, definitely, if you're wondering or thinking about it, just like that question, you know, if I have trust issues with men, can the program still help me? This is where I invite you to have a conversation, because depending on what your issue is, it can help. And if it's not, I will tell you it won't. And then I will say, okay, here's what you either need to do first, or here's what I would recommend that you try even before, you know, we work together. Because I've recommended to people, to therapists and doing other things even before they would work with me and stuff like that, so they can get the breakthrough that they need. So definitely I would say about, let's have a conversation and we can see there. All right, so there's like another one now. All right. This question here is, if you are insecure about a part of your body, yet you want to keep the lights on, do you recommend dressing around that? Do you recommend dressing around that area? Not quite sure when you said, if you're still on the line, Rebecca, that'd be great to just kind of clarify what you meant, recommend dressing around that area. So are you talking about the attire that you wear, like what you would actually wear? Or, because I'm thinking maybe that's what you're talking about.
Hi.
Yes. Oh, hey, sweetheart. How are you?
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
All right,
Yes,
so
I was thinking about the woman who was talking about dressing when you're older and yet you still are trying to be seductive. And if there is areas like if you had a mastectomy, or if you're there's some area that you're uncomfortable with the lights on, just wondering how to get around that.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming on so you can clarify the question. So I'll address, because you said mastectomy, so I'll address that. And then I'll also address the other area the stomach. That's the other area, the abdominal area. So let me address the abdominal first. Now, one of the things for that is it is okay to use other things to enhance what you got going on. So when it comes to the stomach area, what I always recommend to my ladies, like, say, first of all, well, one, is this something that do you want to work out on it? You know, how are you even feeling about that, right? In terms of how that is. So depending on that, part of it, I would say, I recommend it to ladies is wear a corset, but wear an under bust corset, a pretty one, not a waist training corset, a nice corset that you can wear externally. And then what happens is you can put that corset around your abdominal area, for example, and you can wear even crotchless panties and things of that nature. So, and these are all things, because men love the visual of the heels, the cord, all that. You all know that. They love the visual. And now you know why. It's because sight is their primary sense and things of that nature. So if there's an area that you feel uncomfortable with, embellish it with an item that, one, corsets, suck it in, right? First of all, so it gives a woman more confidence to move around seductively, like if she's doing a dance for her partner. Men love to uncinch it. Some of them got that down pat. They can take it off with one hand. That's a pro and stuff. And they love doing that. And then include that as part of the seduction routine. Okay. Now you can have the lights dim. I would never recommend having the lights totally off, because you want to have fun, but you can have candlelight. Use candlelight versus any other, bright lights or any overhead lights in your bedroom. Just use candlelight, ambient light. Okay. Because that also makes women more relaxed and stuff like that. And it's also more romantic on top of it. But that would be that's the easy part. You can wear an item. Now, when it comes to the breast, right? And things of that nature. And when it comes to breast, especially if you've had a mastectomy. Now, many times, obviously, the woman will share with her partner. So obviously, if it's a partner that she's currently with, he experienced that with her. But like, say this is a new partner, okay? It's a new partner that's coming into your life and you're having to share this journey with them. This is why effective intimacy communication is really key. That way you can have confidence in sharing this with your partner. So if it's somebody that is new, you would actually have that conversation about your journey with having to need to get a mastectomy. And it depends if you've done reconstruction or not. Right? There are some women that decide not to do breast reconstruction, and others do. And if you do, just really make sure you go to a good doctor. Okay. That is not something to do on the cheap. Okay. Because I've had to, unfortunately, work with some women that were focused on the price versus what they were getting, and they didn't get a good result. And that exacerbated the situation. So when it comes to situations like that, and they're not going to be doing anything more corrective, because then now they're traumatized, right? So they don't want to go under the knife again. So in those situations, conversation is going to be key, and you have to take it slow. And what you do in the very beginning is making sure, especially if you did do the breast augmentation, pamper yourself with having some really beautiful bras. Really pamper yourself and do that. The other thing is, as a woman, it's also about, you are not just your breast as a woman. You are way more than that. So really, this is also about emphasizing all those other aspects of your womanhood. And then what happens is, as you're having these conversations, if it's a new partner, you want to look to see how he's reacting to you, okay? You want to see the care that he's taking, because a lot of men, as long as you nurse that along and you are sharing your journey with him in terms of, you can say, you know what, since having this, I haven't been intimate with many men since the surgery because yes, I had breast reconstruction. And so what happens is I like to take my time getting to know a man just to make sure that we're both going to be on the same page with this. And when you have these conversations, and don't assume, that's the biggest thing, do not assume. But when you have these conversations, and part of the conversation would be this: have any other women in your family have been recovering from and are thriving and surviving after breast cancer and things of that nature? And asking, and because in many, many families, we always know somebody. And then ask him about that journey in terms of what he observed and what that person went through, because that actually makes it more, it humanizes it. It's not a condition, and he'll be remembering it from what he saw another family member. It could have been his mom, it could be their sister, it could be whatever. And that is where the vulnerability and the compassion comes in, and that is true intimacy right there. Right there. And then that is what takes it brings it into more personal. And then after, asking that question, they start sharing with you, a lot of the apprehension starts to fade away.
Nice.
But it's not one of those things where you meet somebody and you go, hey, this is what I was dealing with. And, no, you don't do it there. It's one of those things where you meet the individual, especially if it's new, and you would kind of see, okay, how are you feeling about, this person? And then as time goes on, then you go, you know what, I want to share something with you. And everyone should have that sex talk anyway, right? Now that we have to have a COVID talk, you got to, you always had to have a sex talk. Now we also have to have a COVID talk, when we're going through things, because now a cough can kill you and everything else like that. So what happens is these are all part of that getting to know conversation. And then that will tell you the measure of the man. That will tell you the measure of the man. If he skips out and goes, you just saved yourself a world of pain.
Yeah.
You just saved yourself. So I always tell women, if a man turns his back because of something that happened in your life, it's better that you find out sooner than later, before you waste your time on somebody that's not going to be there for you. And if he opens up and he said, I can understand because I saw this blah 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 in my family, and he's there, you got to keep going with that one and see where it goes. It's not a guarantee of everything, but you're more likely to have more success in that way. So does that answer the question, sweetheart?
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All right. So yeah, and there's no, you can until you get really, and this is for everybody, until you get really comfortable with the skin that you're in, there's nothing wrong about when you're first getting intimate with someone and having a real cute bra on from Fredericks of Hollywood, or having that corset on so you can feel good there, right? Because then when you get in the bed and you're in the sheets and wherever they may be, they're going to be paying attention to other things. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be paying attention to other things. And then here's the one thing men go, and this is what men tell me all the time. Not every man is looking for a two. There are men that they like a woman that has meat on her bones and things of that nature. And if the man is talking to you and he's dating you, he knows the size you are. He sees that. So what happens is, to be intimate, he knows what he's in store for, because He cares for you. He wants to be with you. So you don't have to be self-conscious. And a lot of men go, I don't understand why they do that. I'm dating her. I know she's a size 12 and I love that. Why is she self-conscious about it? I'm not self-conscious, because men want to make sure that you're having a good time, because when you're self-conscious, it makes them self-conscious. Then that throws off the energy of what's going on, right? I've had men go, you know, I don't care if the woman is a size 20. There's something beautiful that you can find on a woman. And he said, even her elbow. And when he said that, I was like, dude, you're hilarious. He goes, but yeah, even the elbow. There's always something beautiful that you can compliment a woman on. I wish they could see that. And that's what they said. I wish they could see that, because that's what men see. But what women have programmed, right? Nurtured. What women are programmed to believe is that men want what they see on reality TV.
Yeah.
That's the little conundrum that's here. Women are programmed to think that men want what they see on reality TV, and men don't want that. High quality men don't want that. This is what they say. They are freaking high maintenance. That's what they say. And they don't want that. Men that do want that are insecure because they want arm candy to make themselves feel better. Those are the men that want that. Okay. I'm just saying, those are the men that want that. This is why I started this talk with, I didn't have on any damn makeup. With these dudes and all this, I had a mask on in the Indian restaurant. Now, when I was at the bookstore, I did take my mask off because we were all social distance at separate tables, so he could see my full face. But when I was in the Indian restaurant, I never took my mask off. He never even, this is what the dude saw. And that was enough for him to stick with me after he got his food so he can have a conversation with me. And so that's why I want you to remember that, right? Men are not looking for Kardashian. Men are not looking for, basketball wives. That makes for good TV. I was in marketing, I should know. It makes for good ratings so we can sell our product and all this other stuff. But in reality, no. A lot of men also like women with more natural makeup, not looking like a clown and stuff like that. A lot of men do. They said they like the natural beauty. They don't want all, the glitter and all this other stuff like that. So this is why I want to share that, because that is how you've been programmed to think, but that is not the majority of the reality. All right, ladies. So I have to go now. I'm going to do if anyone else had any questions that I wasn't able to answer, save that for next week, because here's where we're going to kind of go into being in your man's castle, inspiring your man to invite you into his home, into his life. And so that is what we're going to be focusing on next week. So if I wasn't able to get to your question, because I saw there were a couple other ones that popped up, save those and I'll be able to answer those next time. And so everyone, with that, we are complete, and thank you so much for sharing this juicy journey with me actually, and I will see you next week. And with that, namaste. We are complete.
Thank you.
Bye everybody.